Yeah, we get so in our heads. Like, how often are you just sitting and feeling? Like, when you have a free moment, are you like enjoying your body? Are you scrolling on your phone? No judgment to all these things, but like we want to create invitations and experiences to get you back into your body, because this is where life happens.
You're listening to Queer Travel Chat by Two Bad Tourists. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Queer Travel Chat. My name is Austin. I am one half of the blogger duo. As always, joining me here in his podcast living room.
We're in my house again. It's me. I'm David, the other half of Two Bad Tourists, ready for episode 11.
Yes, let's do it.
So, before we get into our episodes, we're getting into the high season now of tourism, of travel.
Our group trips are going to start up pretty soon.
Yeah, we had a little break of about 2 months because we did one in January. Mm-hmm. Our next one wasn't until May, so it's coming up soon. Are you feeling ready?
It's going to be 7. May, then it's going to be June, then it's going to be July, then it's going to be September, another club, Andalusia, Cordoba, Seville, cruise.
It's going to be crazy, yeah. Yes. And then in Madrid, like the food tours we do here are going to start picking up in the next couple months. Are you feeling ready?
Nope. But this is what we live for.
It's going to be a blur the next few months. But yeah, I'm ready for it. We can do it until we get our break again next winter.
Yeah, there it is. Who are we talking to today, David?
So today on Queer Travel Chat, we're joined by Shelby Clark, founder of Qasa, certified yoga instructor, trained meditation guide, and somatic facilitator devoted to helping queer people unlearn performance and return to authenticity.
Shelby is the visionary behind Qasa, a queer sanctuary and retreat center in the Costa Rican jungle, which is dedicated to transforming shame into joy, disconnection into belonging, and fear into freedom. They do this through immersive retreats, sacred practices, and nature-rooted experiences and lifelong community. Qasa creates spaces for queer healing, embodiment, and connection.
In 2024, Qasa sponsored groundbreaking research on plant medicine and LGBTQ plus healing, alongside producing a documentary capturing the lived transformation of queer retreat participants. Today, we'll explore Shelby's personal journey, the philosophy behind Qasa, and some powerful topics around shame, desire, belonging, healing, and queer joy.
Also, later in this episode, we will tell you about a special offer where you can save $300 on one of their retreats. So stay tuned to that in the interview and later on.
Okay, so before we get into it, Austin, be honest. If someone told you that we were going to go on a queer retreat in the Costa Rican jungle, what would be the first thing that you're packing?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. What would you pack?
It's pretty easy, a bottle of wine, because I imagine there's not going to be any wine there.
Oh yeah,
to sneak in.
Actually, you should probably pack a few, because they might not. I don't know if they sell that.
And then, yeah, my iPad and some wine. I'm not good to go. Leave me alone. Do I have to talk to people?
Yeah.
What about on a scale of 1 to 10? How ready would you be for jungle life?
I would definitely be ready for something like that, actually, because, maybe you need those. I don't know if you need those in the Costa Rican jungle.
Yeah, I would imagine so. We had to pack them when we were traveling around.
Yeah, and actually, we didn't travel with those, but when we stayed in Ghana for about a month, we had mosquito nets.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we're city boys, but it's nice to get out of the city. That's kind of the part of the fun of traveling, is getting out of your own typical environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I noticed is I feel like queer travelers are always looking for destinations that, they're not just fun, but they actually are safe and nourishing, right? Something like Qasa is creating. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like wellness travel is kind of the next big queer travel trend?
This has definitely been a topic that's been coming up more and more lately. It's not just been about going to the big circuit parties, or the big gay cruises.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've seen an evolution in LGBTQ plus travel, right? It really picked up in the 80s and 90s, where it was all about the gay cruises, right? And you would just take a big cruise ship in the middle of the ocean where you're all alone and just throw a big party, right?
Yeah.
But as time went on, there were different segments of the population that would be interested in different things, right? Not everyone wants to go to a circuit party or on a cruise. So then you would start to find group tours. You would have different events, things that are more about authentic connection. So I feel like this is kind of the evolution. We're seeing different types, different branches of the LGBTQ plus travel tree, if you will.
It's good because we're just getting more options, because not everyone wants, just because we're all queer doesn't mean we all want to travel the same, or we're all looking for the same thing. So
exactly.
And I think we've done exactly 2 of we've done one of the really big famous gay cruises. We've done 2 of them.
Yeah, I've done more.
I'm still recovering. You've done
Yeah,
more.
David's still recovering from the last one we did in 2018.
It's fun, but it's not for every year. We'll be ready in 10 more years.
Yeah.
On the topic of getting away from it all, what's the most relaxing place we've ever traveled together, do you think?
I would say our gay sailing trips to Croatia, actually, they're clothing optional. And honestly, they're one of like the most, just when I think of like travel and what like some of the best memories, they're sailing on the coast of Croatia, right? And if you remember, the very first review we ever got for being trip leaders were from these 2 guys that said, all these guys do are take naps and drink wine all day long, which was absolutely true. Facts.
They were saying that as a critique because obviously we didn't know what we were doing yet. So
we didn't know we were supposed to be hosting these trips.
But that's why we were so relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
drinking wine.
My answer.
But thank you for that negative review because we really have changed things around since then. Whoever that guy was, I forget his name.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever done a retreat or a wellness experience when we've been traveling in the past 15 years?
Yeah, so the one that I remember is when this was like 12, 13 years ago. We were doing our around the world trip, our kind of gap year. And we were in India in the mountains, the Himalayas and Rishikesh, which is kind of like the spiritual kind of small town in the mountains. And we booked a spot. Beautiful. We booked a spot like outside of the city in the mountains in like a camp. And it was like a yoga retreat, but we only did it for one night because we were like not sure if we would be into it.
What a mistake.
Yeah, it turns out that we loved it. We wanted to stay longer, but they're totally sold out. So I was like really upset that we hadn't planned for that.
Did we actually go to yoga though? I don't remember doing yoga.
Yeah. There was like a yoga, what do they call him?
A yogi.
A yogi. It was like this older Indian man. And it was like more traditional Indian style yoga, right? Not something that you would do like in a yoga studio in San Francisco. It was like more traditional that they would do from
I remember the environment. I remember the accommodations. I don't remember doing yoga.
Yeah.
I also remember that a few weeks after that we were locked up in a hotel with gastritis, diarrhea.
Actually, Rishikesh is where we launched our blog, Too Bad Tourist. Remember?
Wait, was that where we were locked up? But so we were in a different hotel.
Yeah. That was when we couldn't extend our stay. We didn't have Delhi Belly at that time. When we couldn't extend our stay at the yoga retreat, we decided to start our blog. So maybe it all works out in the end.
And now look at us with the podcast. Last question I have for you before we get into our episode with Shelby is, what's your vision of self-care when traveling?
So definitely one thing I try to do, and I think you do this as well, I try to make as much time for routine as possible. So I try to get gym workouts in, particularly on our cruises. There's a gym on board, so it's easy. And if we're staying in hotels, I can at least do some cardio or, maybe some weights every once in a while. It makes me feel normal kind of in a sense, but it also helps me readjust when I get back because I've kept that up.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Another big one for me for self-care when traveling is alone time because we're often you and me together. Mm-hmm. We travel a lot, if not each other, then with other friends, with boyfriends, or on a group trip. And so because I'm always with people, it's nice to just find some time, even if it's just right before bed and watching my own show and not talking to people. It's like just to bring myself back to me, which is always helpful.
Definitely. Well, I love all those insights. If you like this show, please subscribe to it on Callin, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you happen to listen. And please be sure to leave a 5-star review if you enjoy our episodes. That definitely helps us get some more visibility. And if you're watching on any social media platform, feel free to leave us a comment or share this episode with one of your friends. And lastly, you can follow us on social media. We're always at Too Bad Tourists.
All right, let's go ahead and have Shelby join us.
Hey, Shelby, how are you?
What's up,
I'm doing well. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. I mean, we have to ask, where are you calling in from with that amazing background?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the Arctic snowstorm. This is just a Zoom background.
What a shame.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm in Costa Rica. So this is a beautiful retreat center called Qasa, Qasa. This week has been the like Arctic tundras moving through. I know this is going to air later, but there's been a time when like I felt like a little bit rude with the background. Like people are like literally freezing and I have to like I'm like in the direct sun in here. And so
this is exactly what we want. We want to make people jealous. We want to show the FOMO, right?
We're watching.
That's right. Come on down. Come to the jungle, especially if it's still pretty cold where you're at.
For those who are listening, you're making us feel overdressed because Austin and I are here in our sweaters and you're shirtless. So I wish we were in Costa Rica with you.
I'm not wearing any pants either.
Well, perfect.
Clueless students, neither are we.
We'll switch the video to vertical at some point.
Perfect. Great.
We never wear pants when we record.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, you're in Costa Rica now, but where are you originally from?
I am from glamorous Aurora, Colorado, suburban Denver. And then I was living in the Bay Area for about 15 years before moving down here in 2021, mid-pandemic.
Are you like full-time in Costa Rica?
Yeah, this is home base.
Oh,
I love it down
wow.
here.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome. I'm super jealous.
Well, I want to hear a little bit about your journey. So tell us, like, what kind of led you into what you're doing now, into yoga and meditation. We're curious to know about that.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll try to keep this quick. So, I mentioned I grew up in suburban Denver as a, sort of a young gay kid. And, my coping mechanism for being queer and different was overachieving. So very velvet rage. I wonder if this resonates with anybody else, but, I got great grades and was like a champion swimmer and went to school on a swimming scholarship and just sort of continued achieving. I got a fancy MBA. I started a really successful company. It became successful. The company's called Turo. You guys know Turo?
From my research from about you, yes, I came across it, but no, I hadn't heard of it before.
So it's like Airbnb for cars. So if you have a car sitting at home, you can rent it out to people. And whenever they're using it and you make money, they get a way to get around. But the company's doing quite well. We'll do more than $1 billion in revenue this year. The majority of that goes directly in people's pockets. It was doing great. We got sort of wrapped up in the sharing economy. I was sort of like, personally getting a lot of attention on this, sort of all the things that I was looking for. And then I got pushed out of the company. So the investors pushed me out, and it was a really traumatic experience. Like, who am I without this? And so I started another company, and then that one failed. And then it was like, well, shit. Now what do I do? And so, not able to figure out my 5-year plan, spinning my wheels, I slid into a depression. And that led me to sort of on a whim doing a yoga teacher training in Bali. And I didn't really want to be a yoga teacher. I just knew that when I moved my body, I felt better. And so I went to Bali, and, I think I was looking to learn a bunch of yoga poses and found spirituality. Yoga, meditation, breath work, sort of all these practices that got me out of my head and into my body. And sort of just turned the camera around in my life, less of sort of looking for validation and sort of like looking inside. And as I sort of, learned all these practices, I was like perfectly primed. And then I did my first psilocybin magic mushroom journey. I did mushrooms many times, doing music festivals. And this was a very, very different experience to approach it with intention. It sort of cracked me open. I think it's hard to feel alone. You feel connected to everything. And it just sort of cleaned the window on my life and helped me see things in a different perspective. And it's stuck. And so the last, almost 10 years has been sort of catching up to that. I met while I was there in Bali, ended up meeting a yoga teacher on Grindr who had this vision of a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. And so all of this comes back to Grindr. I would not be sitting here without Grindr, which I think is a funny part of the story. Yes, I moved down here in early 2021 and started working. The initial project for the gay yoga teacher failed, but another project sort of came out of it and helped to build a psychedelic retreat center and community called Holos. And as that started getting off the ground, I was like, this work is amazing. But I noticed that a lot of the things I've been doing, these, plant medicine ceremonies, yoga, meditation, that I was almost always the only queer person in the room. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the work that I was doing is I'm going to call healing the trauma of growing up gay. These aspects of myself that I couldn't accept. And, it's 20 years later. It's like, I got my shit together now, right? Like everything's fine, right? Right. And, shit came up for me. And, to be able to talk about that in a group of straight people, like, it was okay. But what is it like to do that in a group of gay people? And I sort of sat with that question, and we hosted our first retreat that was all queer people. And it was amazing. I got a good answer on that. And so then we ended up building Qasa in 2022 and, launched it in 2022. And we're having a really great time.
Before we get further in conversation too, because you've already talked about being a yoga instructor and learning about meditation, but what is a somatic facilitator? I saw that that's also how you describe yourself. We said that at the top of the episode already, but I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so a somatic facilitator, it's about getting out of the head and into the body. So like, how can we move? And the present experience of the body, this is where life happens. This is where you experience emotion and breath and joy and sadness, and it's sort of the fullness of the human experience. And often when I go to yoga, especially like in the States, in like New York or something, it's sort of this like type A driven, like get your foot behind your ear, you're doing it wrong, like thing. And to me, that's distracting. That is not like what I go for in a somatic or embodiment practice, about getting into the body. So like for me, my yoga classes are like very simple. It's about simple movements connected by the breath that like may or may not be a yoga pose and probably end in a dance party. So it's like, can you get out of your head into the body where the magic of life is?
Cool. Shelby, we were doing some prep work for the interview and we were reading your website, and on your site it says like quote unquote coming home to yourself. Like, how would you describe that, or what does that mean to you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like as queer people, we've sort of learned a lot to sort of edit who we are. There's been a time in our life, a time in my life when I edited who I was, when I actively lied about who I was in like big or small ways. And so, again, I came out 20 years ago. And so this is no longer a part of my like daily awareness or life. And these like techniques that we learn to keep ourselves safe, we still do them. They sort of do them differently. After it came out, it looked different. So instead of like trying to be straight, I wanted to try to be desirable. And so like I would, I found that by going to gay bars and ripping my shirt off, and like suddenly everyone's really friendly. Right?
And you don't do that anymore. Not the gay bars.
I still
feel
do that.
attacked personally.
This is the last thing. This is a judgment about like about sex or anything. It's just about noticing like, is this actually authentic? Like if I'm actually seeking connection, am I getting that through sex? Sometimes yes, but sometimes no. Sometimes that's actually not what I'm getting. And if I'm using that, like I will speak personally again. Like when I first came out, like sex was a primary way that I connected with gay people. And so again, these are just ways of like sort of changing who you are. It's like I'm trying to be desirable, attractive, as opposed to authentic. And so what we want to do is create spaces where people can actually be authentic. They can come back to themselves. And it's sort of about stripping things away. It's about stripping away these stories that I need to do this to find belonging. I need to do this to be okay. It's like, what if you're okay as you are? Like, what if we can create spaces where like you can come and be as weird and fabulous and fun and vulnerable as you can be. And when you have that safety, amazing things happen. And it's not about healing. It's not about like changing who you are. It's like, it's about stripping these things away and coming back to who you are.
I like that. Well, so let's get a little bit more into your retreats. For listeners who are hearing about Qasa for the first time, how would you describe the retreat experience itself? What is it like, for an example trip, day to day?
Yeah, sure. So we've got sort of like three main types of retreats, and then we also throw sort of like some festival party situations as well. So the three main types of retreats are awaken retreats, and so these are sacred plant journeys. So these are working with facilitators and natural sacred plants, and journeys that are incredibly connected and introspective.
We're talking ayahuasca here, right? And psilocybin?
And psilocybin. Those are the two that we work with. That's right. And so these are a non-sexual space. So we ask everybody to come in and have a celibate week. And it ends up being really important. As queer people, we don't need, as queer men, we don't need more invitations to have sex. There's plenty of places to go have sex out there.
Nice.
And to have a group where everyone comes in and they've agreed to not have sex, it changes the vibe. It changes the way you connect. And it's really refreshing.
Taking that off the table, I can imagine that is going to totally change the connection.
That's really interesting. But that would totally change it.
I've never tried it.
So the next type of retreats, these are embodied pleasure retreats, or sort of sacred sexuality retreats. These are very different. So there's no medicines involved, but there is sex. And I think it's actually really important to have these separate spaces. Again, we're not trying to judge any of this. We're trying to find a space to actually make it come alive and find safe ways to actually express this. So we have two different retreats there. One's called body work. This is about body work and breath work. It's sort of like touch and connection in a clothing optional space. So like coming down and rubbing, a group of queer men rubbing each other down for a week in the jungle. And we just had it last week. It was a pretty delightful experience. And then our conscious kink retreat. So this is a space where we sort of talk about the what and the why of kink. It turns out that the easiest way to get what you want is to ask for it. And that can be a very difficult thing. So we sort of like create an intentional space for people to come in and explore their kink and their desires, and a safe, but safe space. And it turns out when you create this group and this safety, it gets really hot. So that's sort of our spicier of the two of our embodied pleasure or retreats. And then we have our out and wild retreats. So these are, some of the other ones can be a little heavy, where like trauma and things can come up, and you're like, what if no one wants to talk about their childhood trauma? Like, can we just go play in waterfalls? And so that's that one. So we have an amazing facilitator named Dan Link. He's been on the Discovery show Naked and Afraid 7 times, I think, and so he's just an amazing queer outdoorsman and gets people connecting and playing in nature, which is awesome. The last thing I'll say is a couple times a year we host sort of a more playful sort of festival style retreat. We had one in January called Jungle Fag. Another one here on the nose branding. It's exactly what it is, Jungle Fag. Another one coming up called Jungle Reunion. This is sort of a retreat for queer burners. And these ones, I really like these. I like all of them, but these ones I think may be really relevant to this conversation and this crowd, because it's a festival, it's a party, and it's a lot more. I think that we bring in elements of intention and connection into something that you do a lot, like go to a party. And when we sort of slow things down, when we sort of create a little bit of just the right amount of intention and connection without being like too woo or like too preachy, stuff opens, and it can be even more fun. It can be even more sexy, and you can leave these experiences feeling like nourished and connected and refreshed and turned on. I've had experiences when I go to like Vipolite or Provincetown and I go on a rager for a week, and I leave and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah,
You
had an amazing time, but you're like, what? You're like,
what was his name again? It's like I need a vacation from my vacation, and so again, you will find me in Babazon Zipolite, and I love it there. And the last thing I'm doing is judging this. The thing that we've sort of tried to bring in is like, can we approach those same things with a little bit of intention and connection, and can we make them even more satisfying, refreshing, and hot?
Awesome.
Well, so I want to get into a little bit more about the topics that you cover at these retreats. But before we do that, because you just told us about the retreats that you offer, we hear you also have a special offer for our listeners.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for the reminder. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're excited to invite your listeners down. And so we're happy to offer $300 off any of our retreats this year in 2026. And so that is on checkout, you use the TBT 300. So you can use those on checkout. So TBT 300 for $300 off any retreat this year in 2026.
Do we have a use by? They have to do it by a certain date, or?
I think so.
We can put it in the show
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, don't worry.
Sorry, you've got to book before June 1st. So we'll get it in the show notes. So $300 by June 1st.
As well, and they can find all the information at Qasa.house. Qasa spelled Qasa. Correct.
That's
Awesome.
right.
Okay, cool.
So let's get back to some of the questions, like some of the burning questions I have. So like, what would you say makes Qasa stand out from like different retreats or wellness spaces that are available to us now?
It's really queer.
That's pretty easy one.
I do love the
Yeah.
branding, by the way. Qasa spelled with a Q is just perfect.
Yay, thank you. We used to be called the Jungle Neighborhood. Pretty on the nose, but I think that. So for those who don't know, Casa is a Spanish word for house, and so that's sort of the vibe we want to be creating, is about coming home, right? As we were talking about earlier, in the space of community, of connection. But let's make it gay, so let's call it
Right.
Casa. So with a Q, with a bold, like strong Q, to really be for the queer community, and so that is what's different here. There are very few, if any, other queer retreat centers that I know globally. And so there's lots of great places to go and do a yoga retreat, or to go, on a vacation. But we wanted to make this really cater towards sort of the needs of the queer community. So, our programming is different. Our spaces are sexy. We've got like a shared 5 person outdoor bamboo shower. Our showers are bottom. Then we have individual showers too, which are bottom friendly. So they've got a douche straight in the shower. Is that how annoying is that? If you go to like a hotel that's gay friendly and there's no way to douche, I mean, it's just me.
Right. No. It's absolutely true.
That's looking
Logistics are really
the gays, the
important, right?
bottoms.
Come on.
So, right? So not only do we have douches in our showers, but the programming is also like intended for queer people. So like we think about our programs about like what is queer about this? Like how can we actually talk about the queer experience, and yeah, and make this something different. And then it's also queer people that show up. So like we're hosting a yoga teacher training in June, and I was talking with the facilitator Marcos, and I was like, so what's queer about this retreat? And he's like, well, it's the people. Like the program that he's going to teach is the same yoga teacher training he does in other places. So one thing that I was surprised about a yoga teacher training is like I thought it was just yoga poses, and it just so much comes up when you get into the philosophy of yoga, sort of Eastern like philosophies, and what I was able to access and discuss in that space of all straight, mostly straight women. I mean, think about who goes to a yoga studio. I just was like, I didn't say a lot of the things that were on my mind, right? Like a lot of the stuff that actually came up for me in that, didn't, it's like, I don't want to tell these like, middle-aged ladies about my like, my queer troubles. But if you could be in a space of all queer people, like not only do you feel safer to say that, but somebody else is going to say something that is going to like inspire your story. Like the space that is co-created by the vulnerability and connection of people who show up bravely, that invites sort of more vulnerability, more openness and connection from other people. And so that experience is totally different. And it's even different in the spaces that like I discuss in my friends, like often, you're in a conversation with your friends and you're sort of talking about like drag race or, sort of whatever. And, it's no shame. Like I'm watching Ladies Even Drag Race. And sometimes though, those opportunities, they don't lead to like really deep conversations. And sometimes like I'll go on a retreat with somebody for a week and I'll end up knowing them way better than some of my closest friends. And for me, that was a really interesting.
Travel does that.
And even with like within your friendships, you have sort of these boundaries that you don't even really realize or explore every day. And it's not until you go to a place like yours or, others where like you can be authentic and you can just talk about things that you wouldn't bring up to, within your friend group.
Before we continue on too, I want to clarify too, because we're using queer as an umbrella term, but I think you have some retreats that are men only, but also some that are mixed queer women as well. Or can you elaborate?
Yeah, so
Where do the
mostly
lesbians and bisexual ladies fit in?
sure. So we're still figuring this out. I'm going to be honest. I think that like we do like queer to us is just an umbrella. It's a broader term that feels a lot more inclusive. And I think it's important when we talk about authenticity. If it's like it's only for gay men, it's like, well, what if I'm non-binary, or what if I like or trans, or we want people to show up as authentic. And so I also think that like queer men want to be with queer men. Like I think that most spaces there might be a little bit of women or queer women, but like it's mostly queer men. And so this is what we found is like whenever we actually host all open LGBT events and retreats, they actually don't, like they're not that full. People want to come to the queer men's retreats. And so most of our events are open, are specific for queer men. One thing to mention, we also operate as a hotel. So you can just, if you don't want to come to a retreat, you can just come and stay for a couple of days. We've got amazing waterfalls and a hot, we've got a sauna and a cold plunge, and like we've got morning yoga, and like it's still great to just come and stay for a couple of days. And so anyone can come to those. So that's open for, really for anybody. And we'd love to have some queer women's retreats too. I think that for that, we need to really we have some relationships with queer women. And so queer women, if you're out there, reach out to us. We'd love to be hosting queer women's events. But yeah, so I think that like many of the retreats are specific to queer men. And so it'll say that on the retreat whenever you're looking for. Yeah, we found that like having a little bit more specific of a group or demographic ends up sort of making those connections flow even better.
So Shelby, on your website, you've talked about healing shame and how shame often disguises itself as success, sex, self-control. Can you unpack what that means for us?
Yeah. So, I think that shame is a common experience for a lot of people in the queer community. And But shame often is something that's subtle. It may not be sort of in your face. May not even sort of like know that it's really there. It can be sort of operating in the background. What sort of modern psychology has taught us is that shame lives in the body. These become learned things that, again, we may not notice are really present. Shame can show up in ways where we edit ourselves in certain ways. So we talked a little about this in sort of earlier on in the podcast. But the subtle ways that we sort of change who we are, to be palatable, to be desirable, to fit in. At the end of the day, it's like these might feel okay. They might even make us feel a little more safe, but they can be taking us away from who we really are. And coming back to this sort of authentic self, like whoever we really are underneath all of these stories, underneath the shame. This is where sort of your most authentic experience lives. This is where your joy lives. This is how you can be most connected with your body and your experience and your pleasure and your desire and your vulnerability and your fear, and being able to connect with all of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that like shame is something that's very present for queer people. Research has shown this sort of like is the core of a lot of mental um, illness for queer people. Queer people have higher incidence of mental health issues. They often manifest as issues with addiction, risky sex, and these sort of can create shame spirals that continue to go down. And so, really, like naming shame, and understanding, there are sort of antidotes to this. In 2024, we hosted a research study where we looked at the impact of ayahuasca on members of the LGBT community.
Yeah, tell us about that. We mentioned it at the top of the episode.
So, first of all, we felt this was really important to do because the queer population has not been studied with psychedelics since the 60s, when it was studied for its how effective it was in queer conversion therapy. So, weaponizing psychedelics against queer people. So it was like time to turn that page.
Yeah.
And so we did the first rigorous sort of longitudinal study of this. So longitudinal means like over a long period, so before, during, and so for several months after. And so we brought people in for a week long retreat with 2 ayahuasca ceremonies held by very experienced facilitators. And here's what we found, that we saw 3 big changes, statistically significant changes. So one was overall improvements in mental health. So reduction in anxiety or depression, improvements in overall experience of well-being. The second one was increases of feelings of connection and decrease in feelings of loneliness. We live in a very disconnected society. This is really important, of like feeling deep connection to yourself, to community, to nature. And then the third thing was we saw reductions in shame and internalized homophobia. And so these are things that are lurking in the background, and that these experiences and these medicines showed a statistically significant reduction in shame.
And not just the week that they're there on the retreat, you're talking longitudinal. So after the retreat, after the plant, after
exactly, they're durable, they persist. And so I get, hopefully maybe we can put a link. We filmed the documentary, and there's a research study that I mentioned. Maybe we can include those as well.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Shelby, I'm sure you probably have witnessed some of these, but so tell me a little bit about maybe sometime where you've seen someone who visibly comes home. I'll use the term that you use, like comes home to themselves, and like, what does that actually look like?
I mean, I think that they can be, changes like big and small. So maybe I'll talk about like a subtle one, and I'll talk about a big one. One person. So our retreat is clothing optional, and sometimes it's sex positive. But so for our plant medicine, our sacred plant retreats, our awaken retreats, as I mentioned, they are non-sexual, but they are clothing optional. And which is an important distinction, because people can sort of safely get naked without being sexualized, without thinking that it's going to go anywhere. And so one person during one of their journeys stripped naked. They stripped naked in the ceremony. And the music is incredible. It can be this like beautiful experience and like sensory aliveness of emotions. It can be very challenging, but it also can be, and the ceremony often sort of has an arc, like it sort of like goes down into it and then often like comes out into this celebratory experience. And this one sort of like ended in a little bit of a dance party. And this person was like, was sort of like really feeling themselves and dancing naked and like, there's a fire. And I think that they like just didn't expect this. And the experience they articulate afterwards was, I have never felt love for my body before.
Wow.
This is a person who like this didn't feel comfortable in their body. They wished that they were sexier or this or that. And this was the first time that they experienced love for their body. And like, that was profound.
Yeah,
Like, it's so
weird.
simple, but it was so profound. There's another person who came on a retreat and they were in a relationship that didn't serve them. And so, they ended up like realizing that. And it was a really, really hard thing for them. And they went, and over time, over the course of next year, they actually exited that relationship.
Wow.
And in that, they were able to sort of regain autonomy in their life. They restarted their career. And like, I see this person now 4 years later, and they are thriving. They've got a
Awesome.
thriving business. They look sexy as hell. They are like, and I don't try to say like, we healed you. Like, he comes up to me and he's like, this was the turning point. Like, going to that retreat was the inflection point in my life. Thank you. And so it just makes it all worth it for us to do this. Like, we're still a young business. This is like hard, to do and get all the things going, and but it's worth it. It's like worth for us to figure it out. So I'm super grateful.
So you've been working in this space for a while now. So I'm curious, for listeners who feel disconnected now, burnt out, maybe stuck in performance, what is one small way they can begin returning to authenticity today? If you could give them some advice.
I'd say getting back in touch with your body. So take a moment and take a deep breath and turn on your favorite music, maybe get naked and move. Like it doesn't have to be a long thing. It can be 5 minutes, but like take a deep breath, feel your body, getting out of the head and back into the body. Like, this is where life happens. And like we get so in our heads. Like, how often are you just sitting and feeling? Like, when you have a free moment, are you like enjoying your body? Are you scrolling on your phone? No judgment to all these things, but like we want to create invitations and experiences to get you back into your body, because this is where life happens. Our mind takes us to the future. Oh my God, is this thing going to happen? What if? Or the past, like, oh my God, can you believe he said that? Or like, God, I'm so stupid. And like, get out of the head, get into the body, into the moment. And this is where life happens.
I feel like I'm getting a free like coaching session.
Yeah. Really good tips.
Yeah, totally. That's great advice.
I mean, okay,
for
so
this.
Shelby, you've talked about your journey, your past, your successful businesses, failed businesses. You founded Qasa. You're, growing this. Like, tell us what is in store for the future. Like, what does the future look like for you and for Qasa?
That's an exciting question. So, we're trying to get better every day. So we continue to evolve the Casa Retreat Center and space. We just installed a sauna and a cold plunge. So these are like little fun things. People who come back year after year, it's like, oh, this is new. Look at that. But beyond that, I think we want to continue to evolve Casa in a couple ways. The physical space here. So I think over time we envision this to also have a residential community. So right now I'm in our first residence. It's this incredible bamboo tower. The vibe is to live in a treehouse with the birds. So like it lives 40 stories up in a completely open architecture. And so we'll have about 20 residences. So there are people who are like, I'm done with whatever the hell is happening in the United States. Like, I want to live in queer community. I want to be outside every day. This is an option. I think we'll also be exploring more of the hotel. So making that like a more, a bigger offering to make it really, accessible and inviting to come just for a couple of days. And then we're also going to be, we actually just launched our first digital course. So it's called Queer Arrival. So this is a way to engage with Qasa and other places. Right now, it can be difficult or expensive to take a week and to fly to Costa Rica. And so we wanted to create a way for people to experience what we do outside of that. And so we just launched this. We had our actually first course last night, and it was super exciting. I didn't know it was gonna be. Who wants to, like, they don't want to go to a Zoom course these days? Like, do we have enough Zoom in our life? And we had a good sign up. Every single person except for one who showed up and stayed the entire 90 minutes of the course and seemed very engaged and vulnerable. So look out for that. And for more of those things, it's a good way to continue to engaging no matter where you are.
I love it. I love talking to entrepreneurs, business owners who always have like lots of great ideas and doing lots of things. So it's cool to hear all that stuff.
You know, we for our business, we host a lot of group trips. We're doing 7 or 8 this year, and it sounds like your retreat in Costa Rica could be very helpful for listeners that are listening now, but also some past guests, ourselves included. But if there are people who are listening to this, watching this, who are still apprehensive about pulling the trigger and booking a retreat, what would you say to them?
I'd say book a call with us. So like there, you can book a free call on the website. It's like so hop on a call with us. Like our vibe is not to pressure people to come do something they don't want to do. Like that's not good for anybody. Like if this isn't a good fit, like we could. There's plenty of other places for you to go, and it's better for us to realize that. But I think we can help you like understand like where are you at in your life? What are you looking for? And maybe we have an experience that can fit that, and maybe not. And so yeah, I think that like hop on a call with us. We'd love to get to know you, and we'd love to see if there's something that resonates with what you're looking for.
So we're getting close to the end of our chat, unfortunately. However, I just want to make sure, like, is there any question that you wish we would have asked you, or like a last thought you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so I know that you guys cover a lot of travel, and often that can be like in going to queer queer destinations and parties and pride and all those things. And I I think that like I don't want this to feel too heavy, where it's like you only come to this if you're looking to like reinvent your soul.
Right.
I think that like this isn't about sort of like judging the party or partying less. It's about sort of like partying and living in a way that actually satisfies. Like can we like come together as queer community? Can we actually connect? Can we, you don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to give anything up. And is it like can we get more out of the way that we are actually living? The experiences that you are seeking, can we actually, you know, help these things land? Can you actually like, feel and enjoy the pleasure instead of just seeking the next thing? And so, you know, I can tell you from like seeing people come, week after week, after year, there is a magic that happens when we bring queer community together into a safe place and beautiful, epic nature. Magic happens. And so, we're super excited to offer these things. We'd love to have you two and your communities down. Come
Yeah.
visit us. And your tours sound like really fun. Where are you going? I want to go.
We're going all over. We're always
Yeah.
going all over. Well, I just want to build on what you were saying. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, you can go to Pride and party like crazy and go to the parties. And you can also do a retreat in Costa Rica, and you can do a group trip, and you could do solo travel. I mean, there's many ways, and you don't have to choose one. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Time and a place.
It's what's great about the queer spaces now and queer travels, that there are so many options.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
on the note of travel, where are you traveling to next? We always like to wrap up with that question.
Well, so it's the end of January right now, and I grew up in Colorado.
End of
so,
January, but this is going to
I-
air in March. But yes.
Right. Okay, yeah. So I am thinking about Telluride Gay Ski Week. I love to ski. I love to ski with a bunch of faggots. Have you guys ever been to Telluride? Anyone going? Are you guys skiers?
I think I went once to Telluride,
I've never been.
but not Gay Ski Week.
We've been to a few gay
I-
ski, but yeah, we're
I grew up in
snowboarding.
Colorado, and I still actually never been to Telluride. It's sort of like in this like remote part of the state, and so I've actually never been there. But I think it's that's where I'm going next.
That sounds fun.
That is fantastic. What a great trip. We're hoping to go get a snowboarding trip in here
Let's
in the
see.
next couple of months. It's
Yeah.
been a few years for us, but
See if we can make it.
Awesome. Actually, there's one other thing that I'm going to before that. Envision Festival. Have you guys ever heard of Envision Festival? So Envision Festival, it's actually just a half an hour away from us here in Costa Rica, but it's a 10,000 person festival right on the beach. During the day, there's like yoga and workshops and ecstatic dance. And then at night, there's like epic DJs until dawn. And so we bring the sort of the queer vibes. We organize some things like a queer meet and greet and a pride party. And so, I've been to festivals where it's like, I know there's so many people here. Where are the gay people? And so we bring little flags for everybody so you can like find the queer people. So Envision Festival is amazing. This is going to air after this. So think about coming for 2027.
sounds like a rough life.
Yeah. Living in Costa Rica.
Well, if they want more information, again, they can go to casa.house. Casa with the Q.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shelby,
Thank
so
you so
much for
much.
taking the time to tell us all about it. I hope that we get to go meet you there in person in Costa Rica sometime soon.
Yeah.
Come on down. I'd love to see you guys.
All right,
Thanks
great.
for having me.
Bye,
It's been
Shelby.
fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shelby.
See
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. We really appreciate you listening to our podcast as usual. Don't forget, you can save $300 on any Casa retreat. Just make sure that you book it before June 1st because that's when it expires. We will put all the details in the show notes.
And remember, go to casa.house to get all those details. Casa spelled with a Q, Q-A-S-A. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Be sure to leave a 5-star review if you're enjoying the episodes. And if you're watching live on any social media platform, feel free to leave us a comment or share the episode with your friends. You can follow us on social media. We are always at Two Bad Tourists.
So what is up next, David? Well, I'll tell you what's up next. Actually,
Yes,
we
'cause I
don't
never know.
we don't know the exact order, what's coming up next. However, we do have a few cool destinations that we're going to be talking about in upcoming episodes, including Provincetown and Key West. So the next episode will very likely be one of those. Or a
So,
surprise
like,
episode snuck in.
So very gay-friendly
Yes.
destinations. So 2 of the most gay-friendly in the U.S.
Absolutely. So until then, or our next